next to me. Okay. So first of all, I wanted to share with you that this is probably the strategy that I have used the least in its true form. So in the math department last year, we set up a pass strategy that was, probably not shockingly, very linear in terms of how it went through as a math department. And so we had the kids break down a constructed response type problem, and so they did previewed what information they knew from the problem, so they pulled out the details. They accessed previous strategies, maybe making a graph or making a model or things like that. So, and then setting the purpose really became solve for us. So this was something that I have not done very much, and it was very interesting when I did it because it kind of was really powerful in terms of breaking down the text. So I kind of came up with a model activity that I would use potentially in the classroom, and I'll share the purpose of that with you in just a moment here. So, one of the things in math that we want to try and do is help kids learn, when we're talking about statistics, that statistics are numbers that can be used to represent very different viewpoints, and it kind of helps them be better consumers and understand what they're reading when they read these numbers in a contextual kind of way. And so I have a pretty old article that talks about the misuse of statistics, and I wanted to really update it. So I found a newer article this fall that I kind of wanted to have the kids read and break down. So, you know, in the past, I think I would have just handed it out and have them read it. But when I was doing this activity, it was really interesting to me because as I really thought intentionally about some of these pieces, it really helped me see where they would struggle. And then to understand also, what really am I wanting them to pull out of this? So I set up a pass activity that they would literally kind of do through the class. And I have the vocabulary on the back. I decided that the vocabulary words, there were so many of them, and I decided that what I would very likely do is assign each kid a word maybe for homework or maybe as a warm-up, maybe in a couple of days prior to this lesson, and then have them bring those with them so that it wasn't every kid defining every word, but kind of a sharing out sort of thing. So that's why they're on the back, kind of separate. And there were some really interesting words that I thought, again, before I might not have really thought intentionally about what kinds of words they would struggle with, but lackadaisical. Oops, I forgot the S. Lackadaisical. They're gonna have a hard time finding that. Sorry. So then on the preview, I had them start by looking at the title and the subtitle, and then making some inferences from that about what were two pieces of information they thought this article might talk about, given the title and the subtitle. I had them look at the graph, because that's going to be an important piece in obviously tying it into the math. So there's a bar graph here. They're asked to identify it. The scale on the vertical axis didn't show up, so I apologize for that. But this graph is representing the number of crimes per 100,000 people per year that occur in the city and in the suburbs. And from the visual, what I really want them to understand is that while the city bar is higher than the suburbs bar, it also has a bigger drop between the consecutive years. And so that will be an important thing for them to use for the learning that we're going to be accessing here. So I asked them some questions about the graph. I talked about the key, about the special note at the bottom. And then I asked them to use that to make a couple of inferences. So they have to make two statements that are positive statements about the crime rate in the city as compared to the suburbs, and then they have to make two statements that would indicate negative aspects of the crime rate when compared to that in the suburbs. So then for the access part, I decided to do a fill in the blank, and I know that you guys actually probably use this way more than I do in some ways. Like Mike, I'm sure you've used this way more than I have. So that's kind of just what I chose to do. I think there are certainly more in-depth ways to do that. But not having used it before, I kind of wanted to model for them a little bit of the sentence structure and what that might look like. So
I like the guiding questions.
Thank you.
It's really good to access right out that way.
Thank you. So someone in the other group said that, like, when you ask them to access, they don't know what that means necessarily. So I hoped that this could kind of help them see, to tie it into their own life, what that might look like. So tying it into what kind of crime have you seen in your neighborhood, what kind of crime have you experienced in the city, if any. And then what I really want them to do with this is be able to take this and use the data from this article to present two different viewpoints. And so their assignment is, I stated that in the purpose before they established the purpose. this. And so their assignment will be that they will be assigned either to the city group or the suburb group, and they don't know which yet, and they will have to make a brochure or a flyer giving a positive perspective about the crime rate in that particular area. And so then, given that, I've done some sentence starters that they would then establish their purpose, knowing what their end product will look like. And so I also have a wondering at the end about, given what I've previewed, I'm wondering what the article will say about this particular topic. So my hope was that that would allow them to better understand, my purpose and goal for them in reading this. It is kind of, it gets a little bit dry towards the end, and I don't want to lose them, so to kind of have them focus on the main ideas that I really want them to pull from this. So that was my first attempt, actually, at an actual pass. So I know some of you have used it a lot more. And Mike, have you used it very much?
We've used